Progress.
It already did that one.
It also kept you on your toes, and a lot of things we never saw happening or that we thought for sure would happen didn't. That kept you on your toes all at the same time. It's one of the things I really liked about this movie. that was this mixed bag, and I found I had that mix. Did you find it for yourself as well?
To me, like you just said, every prediction was out there. Everybody had predictions. Everyone was like, I wonder what's going to happen, because it's human nature to think that. What I was astonished by, whether things happened that you wanted to have happen or things that happened that you didn't want to have happen, what I was amazed by, I don't think I've ever seen a movie that juggled so much stuff in it and worked. For me, it worked beautifully. I loved so much about this film, and I can't believe they pulled it off. I was like, oh my God, because how many movies have we seen that didn't? And for this movie to, even if you didn't love this movie, I mean, you got to admit, this is a triumph of fantasy filmmaking on such an enormous level. What they went for, what they tried to do was enormous. It was an amazing, astonishing achievement.
That can only be done if it's built on a 20-plus film frame. I mean, so it's not only was this something that was incredible to try, it was only the MCU was in the position to even try it. And it was audacious and bold, and man, you know, fan service is often used as a dirty phrase. Make no mistake, the entire last hour of this movie was all about fan service in all the best possible way. And it just paid, like, hey, guess what? You hung in there with us for 22 movies. This one's for you, fans. And just boom, you know, all at once, and everybody's jumping and screaming. It was just crazy.
But it was story service too. It was giving us the things that we wanted, because we had developed this desire to see these things over the previous 21 movies. And if you're a comic fan, they're always referring back to the comic books. Like, all of this stuff has things that occurred in various comic books. That's what I love. They know exactly what they're doing. I felt authorship in this movie, and that's what I loved about it.
Okay, let's move on here. Alexander, Alexander Platinum writes, imagine if Thor and Rocket went to the Collector during Guardians 1 instead of Asgard. They would have been able to steal the reality and the Power Stone. I have to think about, I think you're right. That might have made more sense, actually. I hadn't thought about that. But I guess you explain it by going, only Thor would have really known that, maybe? Or let's put it this way. If Thor had been sober and really strategizing with the rest of the team, they may have realized there were these two stones in the one place at once, the way that Hulk, Natasha, and Tony were laying down, strategizing, thinking it out, and Natasha goes, guys, if we go to the right time in New York, there's 3 stones in New York at once. But I guess your way around it is like, Thor wasn't in the strategizing frame.
Intel provided by our friends at S.H.I.E.L.D. has revealed the location of an elite AIM squad. We have an opportunity to take them out before AIM can deploy the squad against the resistance. This is a quick hit-and-run operation. Take out the targets and return to us unharmed if possible.
Hulk eating the Ben & Jerry's flavor named after him was a nice touch. So many little nods like that in the movie. I love it. What was great was there was a lot, so many references to the previous
An elite AIM team is close by and on alert. Updating your HUD.
You would only find in the comics. It was a lot of references and callbacks and homage to the previous films in the franchise. And I thought that's one of the things that really made it. Is there anyone
No, I mean, I love Winter Soldier, and, you know, the Caps, the elevator, they even have the same referring back to their own scene, and then ending with the Hydra was so great. Cap just walks out of the elevator. It was just that, it was that kind of stuff that I thought was really just fun.
Yeah, that was great. All right, let's move on here. Next one comes to us from Thanos is inevitable. Not just simply killing the stones slip off the timelines. Wouldn't anything they encounter be less than what Thanos did to the universe? I guess the model. Herein lies, Marcus, the biggest, not the biggest single plot hole, but one of the biggest source of, let's say, narrative inconsistencies. For me, at any rate, throughout the movie. Remember, why didn't they just not return the Soul Stone so that way... Remember, it says near the beginning of the film, changing something in the past will not change our present, because once you go to the past, that past becomes your future, and the present becomes your past. So they surmise, and they say in the movie, that changing something in the past does not alter what is in our present. Now, Rob and I were starting to get into it before the show started today. That, to me, is something they contradicted themselves on the film inadvertently. But, of course, one of the biggest ones, and this is what a lot of people have been mentioning to me, is this. If, by going back to the past, that makes nothing in your change, the present does not change, that ultimately, this isn't the only example.
Every member of the elite team must be defeated.
Captain Steve Rogers goes back to the past. Peggy Carter. What was her full name on the door? Margaret, thank you. Margaret Carter. Did they ever reveal that before? Did they even? I used to love the engagement of the show. I can't remember what they were talking about. But I thought that was cool. Let's get Margaret on here. So he goes back and he looks at the Margaret. And so now here's the thing. Okay, Cap now living in that time, because he's already passed. That was how he
I'm sleeping on the job.
Before Captain took that time travel leap, there was no Steve Rogers. It's reality, if you want to call it a reality. But now there is. Now there is no Steve Rogers in the show. If you go back to the past, they can actually change something now, because now we have old man Steve Rogers. Now, seconds before we were supposed to go live, so you're starting to get into it, but I don't think we had a chance before we express our thoughts to each other. We're very like, no, that's like, oh crap, wait a minute. Explain to me your theory, because I got a few parts of it, but I didn't give you a chance to really lay it out. Why Steve being now in this present, an altering of the present from Steve going back to the past. Steve didn't get in that time machine go back to that. He didn't have one man.
Science fiction shows we've watched or stories we've watched forever, which you see time as one line, right? And then you're jumping around on that line. But in the case of Endgame, not doing so hot. You're talking about quantum reality, you're talking about quantum physics, which is a totally different approach to time travel. Trouble here. That final countdown. You have to change 1983. Aircraft carrier like World War II and after the there is a character that gets left behind beaming with pride and exists with his younger son at the same time. He becomes an old man and his younger son does not know. So there's two concurrent in this puzzle. That's what I see it. Captain America didn't get discovered until 2011. So you old man Steve Rogers will have to stay away from him. So all he knows what he left in the past, or he knows what he left in the future. He goes to that place and he's probably watching the bar or somewhere and he watches himself.
Patriot is dead.
Stay away from him. 5 years? I mean, he just didn't fight.
Another agent down.
In the timeline. And Peggy knew. Did she know? Oh, yeah. I'm sure he told her. But I mean, or maybe he didn't.
See, everything you're saying, I think makes complete sense. Everything you're just saying there to me makes complete sense. However, to me, and I think this is good we're getting this because I think this is going to be the question.
Oh, yeah.
Change something. It does
supposed to happen. They weren't changing anything. That was always going to happen. But that was something that wasn't a change. I mean, it was...
But it's predicated on one Steve Rogers time travel to the past that ultimately causes a change. Because again, one question. Steve Rogers doesn't go back in time. Man, Steve Rogers.
The team are no longer
and
a
if
threat.
we say no, then it changed our present. Then him going back did in fact.
No, because in that universe, in our universe, in the universe of when this Avengers takes place, there was always an old man Steve Rogers in the past because he had always came back from
Good job,
our
Avengers.
present.
With this
into the
victory,
past. He was
you've
always
weakened
supposed to
AIM
be there.
and given the resistance a
That was
leg
the
up.
actual timeline.
Keep it up.
It can't always have been there until a younger Steve Rogers makes the first
Right,
step
but
of time travel to the past.
if you have a timeline, in considering the quantum, the future has already happened. The future and the past have already happened. You can't alter those things. So even if Steve Rogers is existing in the 40s and 50s, at some point in the future, we know that Steve Rogers is going to go back in time. That didn't change. That stayed the same.
I don't know. That feels to me like shaping the answer to fit the question. That's what it feels like. Because couldn't you then say?
I'm just saying it's not unprecedented in our time travel movies.
Right,
Having the final countdown.
Because then you could say that Rhodey was right. Just go back, find. I love this moment, by the way. Can't we just find baby Thanos and? First of all, that's horrible. That was another great line from Bruce in this movie, by the way. Because then you could say, in our linear timeline, that was always supposed to happen, right? I mean, I don't know. I feel like they're picking and choosing a little bit about when they want to apply their rules and when they didn't. And that started bugging me a little bit throughout the movie. But for people like me, and I think a lot of other people as well, even though those things we found a little bit bothersome, it was like, but the result of them doing that is so damn good that I really don't care. So anyway, that's just kind of how I felt on it. It didn't bother me. Like, I noticed it, and I went, hey, but who cares? Because it's
Avengers,
awesome.
several resistance fighters are trapped in the field.
But I'm sure we'll probably
AIM is closing in on their position, and we need you to rescue them before they're overwhelmed.
Let's see here. Where are we
Get
at
to their
here?
provided location
I'm in
and
right.
defend them as long as necessary.
Thor has the
We will
best
extract
entrance
them
ever
when
in the
AIM
MCU.
forces have been eliminated.
But Endgame, okay, sorry. Infinity War. Thor has the best entrance ever in the MCU. Endgame, hold my beer. Thor, Showdate. That Alan Silvestri score, Portals, was fantastic.
There are Inhumans caught in a standoff up ahead.
Scene, Rob, from the dialogue on your left to the visuals of people, music score, it just created this overwhelming music score, visuals, narratively what was happening. Like, I still remember, I started opening it, 5 seconds
in my life, and it hasn't gone away. And when you were truly, because remember, this movie earned it. Yeah. By the time you get there, you've gone through this 2 hours or more of watching this journey, and it's also landed
plus hours of previous material support.
And you're sitting there, you're like, okay, what possibly can you do that's going to make me awestruck more than you already have? Dude, I was sitting there going like, setting up battle scenes. I mean, I don't know when I've seen anything like this. It was amazing. Oh my God. I mean, it was incredible.
And how many times did we say that phrase during this movie? Oh,
it was incredible. I was like, and the fact that, you know what, they designed this showed authorship. They were like playing me like a piano. They knew what to do. They knew what we wanted to see. Kevin Feige, you know, I always say he's the Lord and Savior. Manipulated my emotions were played. It was awesome. I loved it. I wish everything was like this.
I love the way you just phrased something. You said they knew what we wanted to see.
Taking them off!
Fan service is sometimes used in a negative way. This was used in only the best way. They knew what the audience wanted, and they were going to construct this
backup has arrived. Protect those Inhumans.
Vomit awesomeness all over the audience. Yes, I mean, I'm sure they had previous guys, the third floor, the previous guys working on this. The Russos probably threw out ideas like, wouldn't it be awesome if? Because it's sweaty, like we are. I mean, it's like these guys knew they were planning this. Sessions and laughed their asses off about their own awesomeness. And someone said, hey, what if we did this?
Inhuman down. You must keep them safe.
Don't worry about it. I mean, they just probably said, that's why they gave it to us. Fan service when it's used the right way. All right, back to the legs. In the battle.
Here's a center boost.
That was not the fuck out. That was the last we saw of her in that fight. This was like, okay, enough of this. Knocks her out. And by the way, I think that's going to be great for her moving forward. I think this is the first time in her life that she's got flat out KO'd. This is the first time she ever got flat out KO'd ever since she I think that's going to be. You and I talked about that before. I see that. I get it. But the butterfly effect of the universe comes down to something like that every once in a while. At some point, somebody was going to say across the button. Whether it was 5 years or 10 years. That's how I saw it, so it didn't bother me so much. Rob, did that bother you at all? It's a movie. I mean, like it's so fun to be like, oh, I'm watching movies with this many superheroes and this much fantasy element throughout, so it's on every single level. The fact is, it's still 5 years. Yeah, it's still 5 years of horror. I mean, what a bummer. I like it. It was that kind of, that's what chaos theory is. All right, let's move on here. I can't think of the good username rights.
Was that it? I was just getting up.
For sure, but that's what like Galaxy. It's me, right? Of course.
That was the last one.
That was, dude, that killed me. That line delivery alone, that was being extra right there. That's so good. Well done, dude. Well done. The best word, that was an ad-lib. That's a good question. The Bob Morris just sends in the super chat. Thank you, Bob Morris. Apex Scalper right. Suck it, Steve. 20 minutes. Sacrifice play. Yeah. Okay. 10 years. He wasn't the guy to make the sacrifice play.
I gotta tell you what. First of all, I love the fact that they have not lost one item of Ant-Man's total fanboying over Captain America. When he says to me, that's America's ass. It was. I thought it was funny, but the fact that it was used as a setup for a callback later with Captain America, well, that is America's ass. And he's changed a lot over 5 years. Because 5 years ago, Captain America didn't say, you gotta be shit me. And Captain America, when the other Captain America says, I can do this all day, he just goes, yeah, I know. He's changed a little bit, and now he's got those. That is America. I mean, plus,
They're safe.
People are not 100% serious all the time. Whenever you get people together, and the fact that they're making these kinds of jokes, it's not jokes for joke's sake. It gives these people a reality of being actual people. With all of the outlandishness going on, it grounds them and makes it believable.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. All right, let's move on to the next one here. This one that was James Dixon. This one comes to us from Cam Wood, who writes, if changing the past doesn't change the future, why is Cap there at the end? Loki alive? Why is Nebula not dead? This is why time travel is hard to do. And you're right, look, it is convoluted and complex, and there's no set definitive rules, and that's why any time travel movie you watch, is going to have parts where you can look at and go, okay, well, if this is this,
Good job,
why is
Avengers.
that?
You saved our people so they can fight another day. The Resistance will surely succeed with you watching their backs.
There's very few movies that I think, oh, that one, like Star Trek Voyage Home. What I think my favorite time travel movie of all time, probably even more than Back to the Future, but Back to the Future, all that kind of stuff, but in all of them, you can point to that sort of stuff. And clearly, like, remember I said, Rob, in Infinity War, the one moment that literally made my jaw drop was Red Skull appearing. The one for me, and the first audience I saw this movie, Endgame, with, that made everybody go, was when Loki picked up the Tesseract and disappeared through the portal. I was like, and it was never mentioned again. Everybody wondering, how are they going to do this Loki series? There you go. And will it come back into play in the modern timeline now that he stepped out of what was the linear timeline there, much like Gamora stepped out of hers, and now she's in our current reality? It's going to be interesting to see how they play that out, but these are all questions I'm sure a lot of people have, and that we're going to have. But the coolest thing is, Rob, we're sitting here even before the show started, and we're passionately debating.
Avengers. Our agents in the field have identified the location of an AIM data.
Engage and experience this movie through our interaction, discussion, and debate, and that's got to make. I'm thinking, look, we all know right now the Russo brothers and Kevin Feige are sitting in an office in
AIM has a set of turbines powering one of their emergency generators.
Disable them. And they're sitting down watching this live stream right now, and they're just laughing their heads off because they watched our movie, they watched it multiple times, and they're going to be talking about it for months. That's the best compliment you can give, I think. And, yes, I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, Bob texted me this morning. Said, we're not going to play squash today because he's simply be sitting in the office looking at the box office returns. And, every 10 minutes they just refresh and see how many more tens of millions of dollars they've made globally. And I'm like,
it does bring up another issue for me about the Natasha Gamora. Okay, big death. Whatever the technicality is, it's another big death. Oh, Gamora's gone. And yet, Gamora's back. But it's a different time. Gamora's back. Loki is back. All that. But I really wonder why Loki isn't time machine that the Cap used there at the end. Why did nobody just go, let's just jump on and grab that? Let's go back and get nasty. Or we go, like saying, what happened in the past not supposed to affect the present. No problem. Gamora was able to get
but you just answer that question. You can jump forward, but you can't go back and change the past. You can't change the past. You're going through the quantum realm. So once something has happened, you can't go back and stop Natasha from dying because she died in that single timeline. You can't go back and get her.
But wait a minute. That's of course you can.
No, you can't.
Because when Tony Stark didn't have a apparent heart attack while leaving out, they needed to go back in time, have Ant-Man jump down into his chest, pull the circuit to make it look like he was having a heart attack. That's a change from what their timeline was.
Right, but that did not happen in the original timeline that they're from.
Right.
So that past became a different. As soon as they started going into the past and changing things, that's not a past that would then affect the present. It's creating. That's a different reality. They can only come back to the reality they left. They can't go to a reality where that thing has happened in their past because they're going to the quantum realm.
But it doesn't matter. See, Gamora, she's living in an era that is outside of ours.
Right.
She was able to transverse time, come into our present,
right,
and be there. Why could not a Black Widow then jump forward in time to our present?
Because that Black Widow didn't leave our present. If the Black Widow left our present and could come back or have a place, the only place they could come back to in time in the movie, our movie, was because they had left our present. They could come back to our presence.
Destroy the
turbine. You can't go back in time and give the Black Widow from the past a way to come forward to our present.
What they did was
AIM has sent forces to stop you.
Briefcases and Infinity Stones and hammers.
Well, that is true. That is true. You know, I have to run this one down. I know. That's the mistake. I don't know. Remember, I mean, okay, I would say this. The three Gamora could do it, because I mean, it was Nebula who brought everybody to the future. It was Nebula was the chemical kid of Nebula. So those Nebulas were identical. Our Nebulas were identical. So, for whatever reason, Nebula's quantum signature would be the same for each Nebula. Because they were the same Nebula. So maybe it was only Nebula that could bring everybody into the present.
But then why would other people think Nebula was the exact copy of her own self? Why would other characters be the exact copy?
And if you didn't leave, the only people that could return to that point in time were the people that left that point in time. And Nebula left, and she apparently could carry stuff, so she was carrying Thanos.
She never left that point in time.
No, she left that point in time. Our Nebula left. She went to
Gamora was able to come into our time without ever having left.
That's because she was brought back by Nebula.
Somebody else could have brought back Natasha or something like that.
Because you can't bring, well, I mean, I don't know if you're touching somebody, I don't know, but Nebula, you know, our Nebula,
A whole ship filled with tens of thousands of beings.
Well, the question I have is, how did she duplicate the pin particles? Everybody has one set of pin particles. How were they able to shrink and come back?
Yeah,
That's the
let me
meaning.
discuss that little plot hole. I saw that as when Nebula. I'm the one who's supposed to be pointing out the plot holes, not defending them. Anyway, and then Gamora goes into this throne room and she hands him the vial of pin particles, right? I gotta believe, as a thousands of years advanced civilization, that he could take that, give it to Maw, and they could replicate it.
Yeah, I can do that.
Inside the ship, and then they just made the pin particles that the ship, anything inside the ship, much like Tony, his lungs are inside of himself. By him going through time, everything inside of him, or that he's wearing, or that ever goes with him, maybe that same principle applied to the giant ship. Maybe. Or they replicated it.
I mean, I've already seen people make charts. There's been charts on Reddit and all kinds of things. It's very interesting.
All right, let's keep moving. Where are we at here? That was Cam Wynn, I think. So Noel Nguyen writes, initially, in like the A-Force scene, Thanos version. Boy, let me try to read this again. Initially didn't like the A4 scene. I don't even know what that means. Scarlet Witch nearly killed Thanos one-on-one. Captain Marvel nearly took the gauntlet away from Thanos. But one girl screamed for joy at my viewing. I just accept that it wasn't meant for me. Well, I mean, it's understood how powerful Scarlet Witch is because I remember, at the end of the day, by Captain Marvel got close, but then Thanos knocked her the fuck out. knocked her so hard you never saw her again until Tony's funeral.
By the way, I love when he headbutts her and she
and she just grins at him. That was a great scene, but ultimately he won. I mean, to me, the bigger question is, Thanos, with a fully armed Infinity Gauntlet, with all the stones, got defeated by Thor in one shot in Infinity War, but a Thor with Stormbreaker and Mjolnir and all this power couldn't take him? Somebody else pointed out, hey look, Thor is rusty, he's been sitting on a couch for 5 years, and according to his mother, he hasn't been eating salad. And maybe that had a lot to play to it, and I went, okay, I'll allow that. Maybe that's why I'm a bit of a hard time. I'll do that. Yeah, Scarlet Witch nearly got out. Yeah, because she would be able to that. Remember, in Infinity War, Thanos made reference to the fact that Nebula nearly single-handedly. He said Nebula got all my shit killed, and she almost did it. So, it's like unprecedented. Thanos is a mortal being, the right person, the right skill, the right shot, they're going to take him down.
Disable the turbine.
Thor came close, at least in the last movie. Nebula came close, so I really don't think there's anything to be raising an eyebrow at. Do you see anything questionable with that one?
He intends. I mean, where people are in battle, we don't know how he channels his own inner strength. I didn't have a problem with that. He is born of he's, as far as the Marvel universe is concerned, Thanos is very high-born. He has a lot of power in it. We don't know how he wields it or how it works. You know, who knows?
Make sure you're talking into your mic there. Just wait, just guys, see your mic level's going down. Just so that your mouth is actually pointed. So I'm gonna scoot it away. Let's move on here. Apex Calvin writes, over under 40%. We see Thanos some way in Eternals. 40% is a high number. I'm gonna go under on that. I don't know how many. Look, Chris Hemsworth is signing a new deal to come back and do Guardians 3. How much he's going to do, I don't know. Do you want to use anything on Chris Hemsworth's new contract as a little side character in something like Eternals? Or do you want to save him for his own ongoing titles in Guardians of the Galaxy? 40 is a high number. I think it's possible I'll go under 40 really well.
I think we're going to get at least a mention of this in some way, because if you're dealing with cosmic entities, there's a lot to talk about as far as the universe of Thanos is concerned. So I don't know if we'll see him. I definitely think he's going to be a presence in some way. Maybe not. I don't know. He's at least going to get a mention.
I can see a mention. I just don't know if they'll have him appear. Hey guys, just to give you a heads up, it's getting kind of warm in the studio here. I'm going to turn on the AC. So there's going to be a little talking in the background noise, but I got to cool the room off here for about 15 minutes or so. So just deal with the noise for a bit. Okay, let's move on here. Let's see. The next one comes to us from that was some of my smaller favorite moments were the elevator scene. We love that. America's ass, Hulk stairs, and Baby Ant-Man. Also love the end credit scene with the signatures. That was great. There's no post-credit scene, Rob, in this movie, but that was a great, almost Lord of the Rings type of thing they did at the end with having the original Avengers doing their signature on it. I thought that was a really classy way to end that thing.
Yeah, they took it from Star Trek 6. The last they had the cast signing off and going into the stars, and you know Kevin Feige's been talking a lot about Star Trek, and there was a roundtable discussion where he mentions all good things, and you know it would be my dream if I could have anything in the world. It would, right now, as far as entertainment is concerned, I'd love to see Kevin Feige go, look, there's nothing more I can do here. I'd like to take over Star Trek.
That would be something. Okay, let's move on here. Amit Suresh writes, I love the idea of Captain Falcon or Doctor Strange leading the Avengers in Phase 4 and onwards. I do not see Sam as the leader of the Avengers at this point. He's never been... I mean, look, the one great line from Sam is, hey, I'm a soldier, I go where he goes. You know, the sort of thing. I don't see him being that. If anybody, I could maybe see Clint being what and who he is. Doctor Strange is certainly a possibility. I don't think it's going to be Captain Marvel because I think she's still going to stay focused on the galactic aspect of things. Bruce could theoretically, in some ways. I don't know. Do you think we could see Sam as kind of the guy?
Well, I think we're going to get a very different looking MCU in the future, especially the Avengers. We have 3 of their founding members are off the table, and I think we're going to see shows that Kevin Feige has said are going to tie into the MCU heavily. We're going to get Falcon and Winter Soldier, or Captain America, whatever they're going to call it. We're going to see that. I don't think Hawkeye's going to come back, because remember, the guy has been murdering people for 5 years because he was depressed or because he watched his family dusted. I don't see him coming back. He might, but I think we're going to see a whole different team of people, a whole new dynamic. We're going to see things we haven't even imagined yet. We're going to get 3 and 4 years of new characters being introduced before we get another Avengers movie. If we ever get another Avengers.
So who could you see, leading the Avengers at this point?
Well, I think
if we get another Avengers movie in 3 years, who do you think's the leader of the Avengers? Because one of the things I loved about this movie, they made no ifs or buts about it. Cap was the leader of the Avengers. You know, everybody rallies behind him. He's standing there. Even when him and Tony were talking about going to the 1970s to get the stuff, ultimately he says, do you trust me? Yes. And ultimately even Tony looks at Cap and says, it's your call. Right? So, and I love that, but do we see somebody else kind of stepping up to take over that leadership mantle?
Well, I mean, we saw that Natasha was running what was left of the Avengers for those 5 years. She's gone. Captain America's gone. I could see Banner. They have to set up some kind of they know that there are cosmic threats out there. There's going to be the Avengers. I could see them forming like an Illuminati, like in the comics, where you have a group of people, probably led by not one person, but a group, like Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Banner, maybe Captain Marvel, a couple of other people that are going to work as a consortium to decide, because there's too many threats out there. Clearly, they're not thinking about the Earth anymore. They have to think about the universe. And I think it's going to be really interesting. Maybe Reed Richards?
Well, I think we're going to get another Avengers movie before we see the Fantastic Four, but we'll have to wait and see. All right, let's see. Where are we at? Amit Suresh writes, I love the idea of Captain Falcon. Oh, that was that. Sorry. Joseph A. Reiner writes, Thor stuff got annoying. Enjoyed the rest, though. Yeah, again, for me, I thought initially it was hilarious. Beers on ice? Log onto the Wi-Fi? I mean, I love that whole thing, and the body reveal at first was great. You look like a melted ice cream cone. I mean, that was great. I admit it started to wear on me as we went on. I agree, it started to wear on me too a little bit. But, again, by the time he raises his arms to the clouds and lightning starts to course through him and Stormbreaker and Mjolnir fly to his hands, and I'm like, okay, I'm on board. And it was a great moment with what's Rene Russo's character? Frigga?
Yeah.
Frigga? Oh my! It was a beautiful moment.
Plus, to me, that was where that everyone's saying fat Thor. That's where the storyline with his mother of that ended. When he said, it ended. There were no more Thor jokes after that. Once they did that, it was Thor. He found himself. His mother set him straight. Now, his body's not going to snap back, but that idea, that subplot of him being drunk and lost, that was over. His mom talked some sense back into him, and I loved that. I thought, what a great way to deal with that. And then he came and kicked ass again.
Except for that one scene when he kind of volunteered to put on the new glove, and he goes, do you know what's coursing through my veins? And Rhodey, cheese whiz. That was kind of funny. I really did like that. All right, let's see here. Deadpool Chinese writes, the plot hole could be future story opportunities. And look, anything can be future story opportunities, absolutely, and they could leverage those things for that. And again, like Anne pointed out to me, a couple of things that I saw as plot holes had direct consequences of awesomeness. And when Anne asked me, okay, well, yeah, that's a plot hole, that's a plot hole, would you change it knowing that you would lose this and this out of the movie? And I had to go, nope, I wouldn't change it. It just delivered. So I'm going to live with it. You know, when I put out on my social media this morning, I said, after seeing Avengers for a fourth time, I can honestly say I've never enjoyed a movie with so many plot holes this much. And it's true. And every time I watch it, I find a new little plot hole. But I'm also finding ways that it helped deliver just an overall great experience for me, whether the plot holes are really there or whether they're just perceived. I just found that it just creates a great opportunity. And you're right, even if they are plot holes, they could be used as great opportunities for future storytelling. And Marvel and Kevin Feige have been great at doing that. So let's see where that goes. Matt Linton writes, why couldn't Thor take out a non-Infinity... Wait a second. Why couldn't Thor take out a non-Infinity Stone Thanos with both of his weapons and help from Iron Man and Captain America? He was able to turn alone in Infinity War. Hey, and look, I 100% agree that did not sit well with me watching it for the first time around. Like, I thought, we're about to see an ass whooping. I thought, we're going to see an ass whooping here, and then Thanos is going to need to get help, and help will come to his rescue to balance it out. But then some people start saying, hey, Thor's out of shape, he hasn't fought anybody in 5 years, he's rusty, all this kind of stuff. Maybe that's not the best explanation, but it worked for me. It worked for me. Rob, how did you interpret that?
Yeah, I mean, it worked for me, too. Remember, the Thanos that we see is at the top of his game. He's still conquering and culling entire civilizations. When we meet him in the past Thanos in this, he's covered in blood.
Yeah.
Like, he walks in, he's like, yeah, I'm just a conquering hero coming back from whatever planet he liquidated half of. You know, I didn't mind that.
Yeah, it worked for me. It worked for me. And I think his inactivity kind of lends towards that. He's not ready to go, so I thought that was all right. Okay, let's see here. Oh, I love this too. Stevens writes, love the Iron Man and Pepper team up, hashtag couple goals. I'll tell you what, I'm not going to lie to you at all. One of my big neck strain moments, like I never burst into tears in this movie, but there were neck strain moments, like, you know, the neck strain moments. One of my big neck strain moments in this movie was Pepper showing up, and Pepper and Tony back to back, sailing through the air, shooting things down. I freaking nearly teared up. I thought it was great. I thought it was
and
wonderful.
It was set up. You know, his daughter has the helmet. Where'd you find this? Oh, it's the garage.
Yeah, that was an anniversary present. Don't worry, Mom never wears anything I get her. Which is great. And look, she's donned it before. She had Extremis in Iron Man 3. She knows what she's doing. Something like that. And so seeing them go like back to back, that shot of them spiraling through the air back to back, like kicking ass, I loved it. I thought that was a great moment. Okay, let's see. Brian Esparza writes, I wonder how they're going to bring back Vision. Yeah, again, Fake Death Universe, he's coming back. Well, we know he's coming back because they're going to do a TV show. Not everything is going to be prequel, so let's assume they're moving forward. Again, they now have all the pin particles in the world. They have a functioning time machine. I will not doubt at all if at some point Wanda just goes, who clearly misses him a lot. By the way, how great was that? How menacing was that line? You took everything from me. With her eyes glowing, and then he says, I don't even know you.
I love that.
Oh,
I love that.
And her next line, to me, was maybe the biggest badass line in the entire movie when she goes, and it's not just what she says, it's how she says it. You will. Oh my God. It's like, and then she's glowing red. Her eyes are like a demon, and she floats into the air, and it's like, oh my God. It was... I get the blood started pumping at that, man. I love that scene. But it does raise a question. Like, if not time travel, which seems to be the most reasonable thing that they would do, Wanda is just like, screw this. I want Vision back. Everybody else got their lives back. I want Vision back. Maybe Shuri rebuilds him, although I don't know how you do that, but I don't know. How do you think they're going to do that, Rob? Do you got any theories?
I don't know. I honestly don't know, but, you know, Vision's come back a lot in the comics. So maybe they figure out a way that he doesn't need an Infinity Stone to power himself anymore. Who knows?
All right, let's keep going here. The next one comes to us from Sidious Swift, who writes, glad to be able to watch the show again. I really didn't want the movie spoiled. Did you folks have a favorite scene in the movie or vice versa? I'll tell you what, Rob. This is going to sound weird. You know what I think? Notwithstanding Cap getting Mjolnir and notwithstanding Avengers Assemble, honestly, this is going to sound weird, but I think my favorite moment of the movie, and I told Ann this last night, and she was really surprised, and I think you will be too, my favorite moment of the movie is at the funeral, and it's Hap sitting down with Morgan, and Hap says to Morgan, you hungry? Yes. What do you like? What would you like? Cheeseburgers. Jon Favreau might give the best momentary performance in the entire movie, because when Morgan says cheeseburgers, the next time you guys watch this movie, forget everything else, turn all of your attention to Jon Favreau's face. When Morgan says cheeseburgers, Favreau, in a way that only a director can, Favreau tells an entire story in 1 second with the changing emotions on his face alone. And then he turns to Morgan and says, you know your dad loved cheeseburgers. I nearly broke down. Dude, I nearly broke down because, of course, we remember Tony loved his cheeseburgers. When he got rescued from Iron Man 1, the first thing he said he wanted was cheeseburgers and half-breed cheeseburgers. When she says cheeseburgers, the look on Jon Favreau's face and all the different emotions that wash over him as Morgan says that beside him. And then the way he says, trying to be strong, you know, your dad loved cheeseburgers. I almost wanted to weep right there. And Ann said, walking out of there, she goes, you know, this little girl's pretty much set, right? I've got, like, on one hand, the people looking out for me are some of the richest people in the world, running the biggest corporation in the world. And oh, by the way, I've got the Avengers on my right. So this little girl's set. But to me, that was one of my absolute favorite moments of the movie. And anyway, besides Rob, Mjolnir, everybody coming out of the portals, was there any particular moment that really stood out to you that you really think about whenever you think about this movie?
I love the scene where Cap and Natasha are talking. You know, he comes back from the VFW where he's having his group session that he's clearly been running, I think, for a long time. And he comes back in and Natasha says, this is what I have. You know, that's why I'm doing this. And they have that exchange. It was just a quiet moment, two people sitting down, not moving. You know, the camera's not tracking around anywhere. It's just two people, two characters that we know and love, having a conversation and Nat explaining that this is her family. This is what she has left. And I'm like, wow, this is... The fact that a movie like Endgame takes the time. You know, I love the first hour of this movie because it was all about those kinds of moments and setting up... I mean, what are the ramifications of half the population disappearing? And the film really made you deal with those things. And that conversation, it kind of harks back to I always talk about Age of Ultron when everyone's trying to pick up the hammer. And I said I'd watch a movie called My Dinner with the Avengers, where you just watch these characters talk together for, you know, an hour and a half or 2 hours.
That scene in Ultron, that was great.
Well, that's why we love these characters, is because they, in all of this, the reason this movie was 3 hours long, the reason you needed the length was because they had these moments in that first hour where you really set up and understood where everybody's head was at. I mean, I also love, just as a quick cut, I love the cut. The camera behind the pickup truck with Thor and Rocket sitting in the back of the pickup
with that song
as they drive into New Asgard.
And the camera pans down.
New Asgard. They could have flown there. You know, they flew somewhere and they're taking a pickup truck in. I love that. It was so great. Rocket and Hulk, of the most incongruous group of two people, of the characters, in the back of a truck. I loved it.
All right, let's move on here. Let's see. That was City Swift. Next one, Daniel Fitzpatrick writes, on your left, love the scene when Dustin returned. I mean, yeah, I mean, that's the moment, right? Then besides Thor getting, or Cap getting Mjolnir, the moment is everybody returned, showing that what Hulk did, it worked. It really worked. And of course, we already saw that with Barton's phone ringing. Ant-Man looking out, seeing more nature is alive outside, that everything worked, and we knew it was a matter of time at that point. But yeah, that's the moment, dude, that everybody's going to be talking about. I can't think of a good username rights. Was Black Widow movie a misdirect, or is it a prequel? They've been saying it's a prequel, but it's definitely not a misdirect. It's happening. It starts shooting next month.
Yeah.
So it's happening. I'm still not... It is most likely a prequel. I'm still not 100% sold that it's a prequel, though. By the way, look, this movie's making $1.2 billion worldwide in its first week. Again. Right, I'm telling you right now, Bob Iger's phone is ringing off the hook of major Disney shareholders who are going, yeah, get these people back. It's the shareholders going to be like, yeah, we just spent $71 billion, so keep making this money. Bring him back. I said this before, that even if they killed off Captain America in this movie, and they didn't, but I guess in a way they sort of concluded him. I said this whole time, he'll be back. I 100% believe it may not be this year, it may not be in 2 years, it may not be in 3 years. I believe he's going to be back. I believe Tony's going to be back. I believe Black Widow's going to be back. I believe Cap's going to be back. At some point, some way, these guys will be back. And I do believe that for Black Widow, so I think there's a chance. Although there's most likely, there's nothing wrong with doing a prequel movie. But Rob, the one question I have, though, is coming out of a big movie where a significant character dies, and then going right into a prequel movie about that character, when did we see that? Oh yeah, Solo. Wasn't received, at least at the box office. The people who saw it tend to really like it, but wasn't received all that well at the box office. Now, this is a different situation. It would still be Scarlet Witch playing the main character, but we just saw her die. She's dead. Are audiences really going to flock out to watch another movie with that character now that we just know she ends up dying in that particular movie?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm curious to see what they're going to do because, again, they planned this. This was a series that went over 22 movies, and they were able to adapt when things didn't work as well as they wanted to, and they changed, and they evolved, and they made it all work. I don't know what they're going to... Like you just said, this shareholder expectation, the pressure that's got to be on Feige, they've got to be asking. But again, what Kevin Feige did was unprecedented in cinema history. Nobody can expect, and no shareholders can expect this to sustain this kind of a run. It's never happened in Hollywood. It's probably never going to happen again, at least in our lifetimes. And I don't think it can be expected that it's going to continue on. They'll still be successful, but look, they're going to have a plan. They're going to have to do what they did. They're going to have to go back and start building again, building the blocks and start over. I don't know how they're going to do that, but like with you, I wonder, a new Scarlet Witch movie, how is that going to work out after we've just killed her off? If it is a prequel and we see her interacting with Barton, and we're going to do some of that, because, look, I think the two characters, the relationship between Clint and Natasha was certainly added. She went to get him in Japan. They had that scene on Vormir. I mean, it's there. I'd love to see more of them interact. I'd love to see what was in Budapest. I mean, I don't think they're going to go that far back. I think they might do it in the 5 years. I think they might do it in that 5-year gap from the end of Infinity War before the beginning, because you don't have to DH Scarlett Johansson and make her look like she's 27 again. I mean, that would be, you know what? I never thought of that, John. That's a really good idea. What do you do in the post-snap world when the governments of the world are in disarray, the world is in disarray? Who is taking over? That way you could bring in characters like Okoye, because we saw her. She was helping. She was out there putting the world in order the way she was in Black Panther. The Dora Milaje. There's a lot of that's. I never thought about that. That's a really interesting idea.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see what they do. And that way you don't have to worry about de-aging anybody, stuff like that. So could be there. All right, let's move on here. Apex Cowboy writes, Steve not lift hammer in Age of Ultron because he lied to Tony? No, because if he was just simply not worthy, he wouldn't have been able to fudge it. Because remember, Thor in the first Thor movie, after he was deemed unworthy, just simply, it's not a sort of worthy. It's kind of like saying you're not sort of pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not pregnant, right? You're either worthy or you're not. Thor wasn't worthy, couldn't budge the hammer. I think Cap always was. That's why Thor said, I knew it. I knew it! And so I think he was always worthy. It took a moment of crisis for him to really reach down and be able to do it. So that's how I see it at any rate. What about you, Rob?
No, I agree. I mean, look, it's whatever the magic is that decides who's worthy or not. It's not, you can't be kind of worthy. Whatever this power of the universe is, whatever this Asgardian power that Odin bestowed upon this hammer, it knows. And I think Steve Rogers, through his life, certainly since Age of Ultron, has proven his worthiness time and time again. You know, it's about your heart, it's about your soul, and that hammer knows.
And which does raise a question. Thor, for the last 5 years, has been a drunken sloth, ignoring the needs of his people, holed up selfishly in his little home, playing Fortnite with his buddies Meek and what's Tyker's name, Korg, and all that kind of stuff. But he was still worthy, I guess. But you're right, it knew his heart. It knew his heart, it knew that heart, so that's how I see that at any rate.
Because what was interesting, Stormbreaker still knew he was worthy. It was Thor himself that doesn't know he's worthy.
Well, remember, Stormbreaker, though, didn't have the same enchantment on it that Odin put on Mjolnir, so I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting question, though. All right, Harris writes, hardest cry for me was the end during Tony's funeral, when the camera goes around every character and the music. When did you cry the hardest? So, like I said, I didn't cry once in it, but I did have a number of neck strain moments, like everybody coming out of the portals was a big one for me. But like I said, I think my biggest one was that moment between Morgan and Hap. That to me was just, and Pepper with a dying Tony was beautiful as well. Yeah, those are the big ones. What's the biggest emotional moment for you?
I don't know. It's hard to say. There were so many different. I had so many different emotions. I wasn't really paying attention to how many times I teared up or something like that. But there was, I even teared up at the beginning. The thing that I remember was, which was unexpected, even though you had called it before that the movie was going to open that way. I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting to be that affected by it. That was the thing that this movie really snuck up on me, because I didn't expect to feel the kind of emotions that I felt. Like, even when Rene Russo was talking to Thor, it didn't make me cry, but I was like, oh, that's so, that's such a, what a nice moment, what an unexpected moment. I don't know. I mean, it was all of it was. I mean, this was an emotional roller coaster for me all the way through.
All right. Let's see. Emad writes, watching Cap walk away after they botched the first time machine test got me emotional for